Welcome, everybody, to the Outdoor Photography Guide Summer 2023 Showcase. I am Leah, and I've got David Johnston here with us today to go over all of the incredible products that you have the chance to win when you enter our summer sweepstakes. Hi, David. Welcome. How are things going? Tell us a little bit about how your summer's been.
Hey, Leah, it's good to see you again. I know we did this a little while ago, and I'm excited to do one again because we've got a lot of really great gear to go over. And as most photographers are, I'm kind of a gearhead, so I love kind of testing these out. Summer's been good. It's hot right now, but
Yes.
that's just what it is. So I'm excited for fall. I know in the Southern Hemisphere, it's about to be spring. There's a lot of good color that's about to come out all over the globe. So I'm really looking forward to that and actually getting outside without feeling like I just stepped out of the shower.
Right, exactly. It's a little bit hot over outside our doors here in Minnesota as well. So it's been a hot one. We're ready for fall, like you said.
Yeah, it doesn't get as cold down here as it does in Minnesota, but I'm
True.
still prepared for, sub 100-degree temperatures.
It will happen. All right. Well, with all of these changes coming, we've got our summer sweepstakes. I know we said that there are some of you in our lower hemisphere that might be changing different seasons, but we are featuring some things for our summer sweepstakes for our northern hemisphere friends here in the summer coming to the end. And you can find the link in the description of this video or in the comments, and you can enter the sweepstakes by September 18th, 2023. September 18th is going to be your last day to enter, and all we will need from you is your email, and you will have the chance to be randomly selected to win one of the prizes that David is going to be going over today. Now, quick little tidbit from me. This sweeps is only open to U.S. residents. So if you are a U.S. resident, you are eligible for this sweepstakes. But of course, stick around with us. Ask David some questions about these, even if you are viewing from a different country, so that you can get some really great info on a lot of these products and David's expert advice on how to use them and where you might be able to find them where you live. So again, that is for our US viewers, September 18th, last day to enter. All we need is your email, and you will have the chance to be randomly selected to win one of these items. Now, while we are live, feel free to please say hello in the chat box. We've got, excuse me, we've got that chat box for you below the video or in the comments if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube. So use that chat box right now if you'd like. Say hi, let us know where you're viewing from and what you're looking forward to hear from David today. And I will keep an eye on that throughout today's event. If you have some questions about the items as we go through live, I will get those over to David so he can answer those for you in real time. So with that said, I'm going to have David take it away with our very first prize. I believe, David, we start with the mpb.com Hasselblad X1D 250C.
Yeah, MPB is a phenomenal company. I've actually used them several times in the last year to sell and also buy gear that I needed for my photography business. And if I'm just going out for fun, I asked them to send over one of their top products. This camera is amazing. This is a Hasselblad X1D 250C. And what's amazing about this is they have a lot of different options for you. I brought the packaging for you and just wanted to unbox it on screen so that you could see the quality that they send it over in. Like, this is like new boxing and everything. So I know a lot of companies and websites have options for you to buy used cameras and used lenses. And I mean, MPB has things like tripods and drones, anything that you want to get for your photography, even up to the items of like audio accessories, things like that. But what's great about MPB is that they send you really top-notch products. So this is a full frame camera, and you can see massive frame on here. And what I love about not only MPB, but companies like Hasselblad is really high quality products. And I wanted them to send this over because I wanted to look at it, test it out, kind of see what it was all about. This camera is amazing, by the way. This is a full frame. It's tiny. You can see how thin it is and how lightweight it is. So this is a really solid camera to use. But for MPB specifically, when you go through them, you can sell your gear to them. You can trade your gear with them. If you wanted to sell something and then buy something else in return, you can easily function a trade with them. And I've actually bought a lot of products from them when I'm using them. So it's things like my drone back here on my shelf that I got from MPB. I've gotten a couple cameras, lenses, and I actually just went through the process for the first time of selling one of my cameras and lenses back to MPB. And what the process is it's a really clean process. You go on their website and you tell them what kind of camera, what kind of lens that you're selling, and you add it to the processing, and you tell them the condition that it's in, any issues that you've had with it, and then they send you an immediate quote to your email inbox. Once that quote is processed and you say you want to sell it, they'll send you the shipping label. So all you have to do is put it in a box, package it. They give you the packaging instructions. You take it, they ship it off. And in just 2 days, I got a return quote of saying, hey, we just went over the camera. It looks great. Here's the actual quote. It was pretty much right on what they told me it was going to be. And when I got that back, it was deposited into my bank account, and I was able to buy more gear that I wanted for my photography and do things like that. So, what was fun about this process, and not only getting and testing cameras like this out from MPB, is you can see the quality of gear that they have. Like, this is a like new used camera, or you can sell your camera equipment. Like I said, trade. It makes me nervous sometimes to go through other websites that have buy used products on there for a decreased price, because I've gotten some products back when I do buy used and they're a little bit funky. Something's a little bit wrong with them. Buying from MPB, you know exactly what you're getting. You know the quality that it's in, and you can range anywhere from like new to good, and those prices will vary. So you can determine what you want to buy from them or what you want to sell back to them. But MPB is just a really great company to use when you are buying, selling, trading your photography equipment. And you can honestly save hundreds of dollars and get phenomenal equipment back from them. So it's a really good company to use. I highly recommend them. And with cameras like this is thousands of dollars in a camera, and it is shipped right to your door, like new quality. It is a phenomenal company to go through. I love MPB. I check them all the time because I have a problem with gear. Okay. I check them all the time on their website, see what they've just gotten in, and look through their inventory all the time. So I highly recommend MPB for any gear, accessories, lenses that you might need for your photography.
Awesome. This is great starting out. I don't see any questions coming in yet in the chat for David. Again, if you are just joining us, we are going through some fantastic items that David is going to be featuring. These are items that you will have a chance to win in a sweepstakes. There will be more details for how you can enter for your chance to get your hands on some of these a little bit later. But for now, we're going to move right on into our next item. I believe we're moving into something from Tamron here. We have the Tamron 20 to 40 millimeter f2.8 Di3 VXD, and this is for Sony mirrorless. Am I correct?
That is correct. And I
Awesome.
actually put it on my own Sony camera so that you could see the size of it when it's actually attached to a camera. So you get a good sense and feel of how big this lens actually is. And you can fit this on any Sony mirrorless camera. The 20 to 40 millimeters is just a really good range to use. And I like that range a lot, especially if you want to go somewhere you don't want to take a lot of equipment with you. This 20 to 40 range is really good. Let me just detach it from the camera real quick so you can see the actual size of this when it's collapsed down. Super small lens, great to use. It has a great feel to it. And what I love about Tamron is that they give you a lot of reach in just a small package. And a lot of times you're going to save hundreds of dollars by going through them. And you're not going to sacrifice any quality when it comes to a Tamron lens. And in just a second, we're going to feature another Tamron lens next. And then I'll show you kind of some other things that, because I love Tamron and use them all the time. what I love about these lenses is that the focus ring and the zoom ring are super smooth. I never feel like I'm going to slip in and out of a depth of field or a focus depth that I'm getting or any kinds of range that I'm getting with my lens. These are also really good in weather. I've taken these out in a lot of different weather: high heat, low cold, lots of humidity, some rain. They are weather proofed, but nothing in photography is actually 100% weather sealed. We'll get to that with another one of our products. So I do like taking my gear out into the elements, and I've never really had an issue with Tamron before. Not that I would like dunk it in the water or anything, but they are really good lenses to use. And like I said, with a lens like this, like a 20 to 40, it's not going to add any real size to your camera that much. But with this, what you can do is on a trip, you can easily take wide angle shots at 20 millimeters, and then you can take some mid range shots at 40 millimeters, and you're only taking one tiny lens in your bag. You could literally, if you were going on a trip across seas, if you were going on a plane, this would easily fit in your bag. You could easily take this with you wherever you are going and get some really high quality shots. Not only that, a lot of these lenses that come with a big zoom range. And if you have any questions on these lenses, please send them in so we can answer those and get you the information that you need to know on these. Is a lot of times when you're getting a zoom range of like 20 to 40 millimeters, you're sacrificing some speed in your lens and you're sacrificing how wide that max aperture can be. I think with Tamron, a lot of times you're not sacrificing that, and you're not sacrificing quality and speed in a lens as well. So when you look at these 20 to 40 f2.8, that's a really wide aperture that you can use. So you can easily use the 2.8 at 20 millimeters or 40 millimeters and get really crisp shots. So if you want those blurred backgrounds, if you want a lot of range in your shots, if you even want to shoot at night with this lens, you can easily do that. Find the Milky Way, shoot stars. It's a great lens to use when we're talking about a wider lens to a mid-range lens when you're using this. So again, really compact lens, easy to use, easy to figure out. And you can take this anywhere you want to go and have it right in your bag on the ready for any moment that you want to capture. The Tamron 20 to 40 f2.8 is an amazing lens no matter what kind of outdoor photography you use, from landscapes all the way to travel photography. I would even, take this as a wide angle option on a safari because it has so much zoom capability in it.
You actually just answered the question that came in. Bailey was asking, what would you be shooting with this lens? So you offered a couple suggestions there. Do you want to elaborate a bit for people that are curious?
Sure, sure. So when you're dealing with a lens like this for landscapes, you would probably have it more on the 20 millimeter range for it because you're looking for those wider shots. And then when you're doing something even to small scenes, I like, a lot of times I like to shoot straight down on the ground with a lot of detail shots in my outdoor photography. And for that, I'd zoom in to about 40 millimeters to get that zoom in there. With something like travel photography, though, I took a similar lens out to where I live and captured a lot of places around the square, around the main street that is in my hometown. And I really enjoyed using a lens up to 40 millimeters and getting that range in there with travel. And with travel, you can get wide shots just walking down the street. You can easily change this in and out. For something like wildlife, this is a really good wide option because, a few years ago, we did a trip with Outdoor Photography Guide to Kenya into the savannah and photographed all different kinds of wildlife. And there were moments I remember getting my wide angle on my camera and taking photos of lions that were right up next to our safari vehicle. So you can easily use this with a good range from 20 to 40 to get good shots that are right up next to you. And with those wildlife shots, especially close range, using the f2.8 with this would give you a really nice blurred background if you were getting low to the ground, not too low. You don't want to, get out of the car with lions right next to it or anything, but you get a good background with that with the 2.8. So those are some good options for you when you're dealing with night photography. A lot of times you want it with that widest view possible so you can see the max amount of like Milky Way or stars that are in the sky. So you're dealing more with that 20 millimeter using the f2.8 max aperture to just let in all that light that's coming in.
Sounds amazing. All right, we don't have any more questions coming in for this one, which means we're ready to move on to the next one. You've already teased it. We are staying with Tamron for this piece as well. This is going to be the Tamron 50 to 400 millimeter f 4.5 to 6.3 Di3 VC VXD for Sony mirrorless. I can see you getting it prepped and ready. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, this is a beautiful lens. I teased it just a second ago. This is a 50 to 400. So you're getting tons of range with this lens. Obviously, 20 to 40, a little bit lighter. This one's a little bit longer, a little bit, bulkier and heavier. But if you were to take just the 20 to 40 and then the 50 to 400, if you think about that range, if you just use these two lenses in your bag, you're getting a range from 20 millimeters all the way up to 400 millimeters, which is kind of like a dream package in two lenses by themselves. A lot of times photographers will take a 24 to 70 and then a 70 to 200 and then a 200 to 400 and then a 600 prime. And by that time, if you're doing a lot of hiking, if you're going on an airplane or something, you're carrying like 60 pounds of camera gear on your back. And it's insane. If you were just to take these two lenses, you're getting that range of 20 to 400 in just two small packages. And if you just hold these side by side, you can see the comparison in size there. And a range of 50 to 400 in a lens this small is pretty incredible when you think about it. So this is an external zoom lens, meaning that all of the zoom is going to come out of the lens as you zoom. So this is it all the way to 400, and this is zoomed out all the way to 50 millimeters. Again, I put it on my Sony so you could see like how big this is actually going to be. Not big at all when you think about how much reach you're getting with this lens. Now, a couple of things that I love about these, I talked about how smooth the zoom ring and the focus ring are on Tamron lenses. But what I love about these bigger zoom lenses from Tamron is that you get some custom buttons that you can actually use for your photography and set those to what you want them to be. You also have some stabilization in here. You have a button right here that can be customized. I use it for focusing sometimes if I'm doing some auto focusing. My favorite feature, though, is kind of like when I go out to shoot, a lot of times I'll slip, make a mistake, and accidentally bump my focus a little bit in. What I love about these is they actually have a lock in here to where if I want to shoot at, let's say, like 135 millimeters right here, if I just flip this lock and turn that on, it easily locks in place. Or if I wanted it on 50 millimeters, I could lock that in place there too. So what this is great for is in your bag, if you want it locked at the smallest size possible, you can lock it in there, or you can lock it in at other areas too. Now, I mentioned how good these are in weather, great weatherproofing on these. And I love how good the glass is in Tamron. You have a lot of pieces of glass in here, which what makes it a little bit heavier since you're getting a lot more zoom in this. I wanted to compare it real quick. I have my Tamron lens. I have a 150 to 500 here. So a little bit difference in a lens. If you're dealing with a 50 to 400 versus a 150 to 500, you're saving a ton of size by going with this lens because this is bulky and very heavy. And then comparing the 20 to 40 with a 17 to 28, you're actually getting more zoom in a smaller package and keeping that f2.8. So this is 17 to 28, and this is the 20 to 40, and you're getting more range out of this one. So I love Tamron in the fact that they're giving you tons of zoom, tons of areas to work with, and you could easily use, let me unlock it. You could easily use this for a safari and have this on your camera the entire time, because you are getting up to 400 millimeters. You could use this for other wildlife capabilities. And I like to use big zooms. I know I've used 70 to 200 in the past a lot to capture landscapes. But what I've found as I've progressed in my photography career is I've gone more towards the 100 to 400 range when I'm taking landscapes. That is because you're taking different parts of the landscape that you could shoot with a wide angle lens and get that big view. But then you could take something like a 100 to 400, or in this case, a 50 to 400, getting a little bit extra range in that and capturing smaller little parts of the landscape when you're going out to take photos. So that's why I love lenses like this that give you tons of range and tons of wiggle room. Now, comparing it to something like a 400 millimeter prime or a 600 millimeter prime, those lenses are going to be about out to here. Massive lenses that you take on your camera and extremely heavy. I did take one of those lenses with me to Kenya when we did go with Outdoor Photography Guide, and it was a haul getting it on the airplane, through customs, taking it with me every single day. It was a beast, but I kind of wish I would have had, definitely wish I would have had this camera or this lens, because it probably would have stayed on my camera pretty much 95% of the time in a situation like that. So this is a phenomenal one to use. You can do it for adventure photography, capturing people in your images to create scale. So many uses for this lens, and I definitely think it's worth to have in your camera bag. So I love, love, love this lens.
We actually just had two questions roll in, one right after the other. They're very related. So I'm going to ask David if you could talk about both of the Tamron lenses that you've just featured. Joe and also Rebecca are curious to know if they can be fitted to a Nikon, if you can get this for any brand camera. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So these two specifically are just for Sony lenses or Sony cameras, the mirrorless cameras from Sony. So those are going to be E-mount cameras. But if you go on the Tamron website, they a lot of times have comparable lens ranges for these for those camera makes. These two specifically are just for Sony's, but they do make very comparable lenses when we're talking about Canon, Nikon, a lot of those other camera companies that you may have in your camera bag that you're using. So when we're talking about lenses like this, the mirrorless lenses specifically are typically a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter weight than your DSLR lenses, but you can get comparable sizes and ranges with those on the Tamron website. So I definitely go on there and check out what they have available for any camera that you might own. But these two specifically are just for Sony E-mount mirrorless cameras.
Okay. And then Nick has a question about your camera. Nick wants to know, what is the tool that is attached to the bottom of your camera that we're seeing?
Oh, yeah, this is a fun one. So this little tool saves me so much time. It's called an L bracket. So what I do is just attach this to my camera, and I keep it on there all the time. I've arranged it so I can get my battery out and also access the side panel on here. And it just allows me to easily, it's got a Swiss Arca plate on the bottom, so I can attach it to my tripod like this, and then easily just switch it and attach it like this too. So it just saves me a ton of time. They're really cheap to find on any website, so you can pick those up. But it's called an L bracket, and really great, especially for landscape photography.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'm sure that wasn't our only viewer that was curious about that. I will remind everybody, especially for those of you that didn't join us at the beginning of the event, we are running through some very exciting products that David is going to talk us through and show us some features on. And the chat box is open for questions. If you also want to share some comments, if you have experience with any of these products or any of these brands that you would like to share with your other viewers that are in the chat box with you, keep those comments in there already. And finally, before we move into the back half of products, I wanted to put a quick reminder in about the sweepstakes. That's what this is here for. You have the opportunity to get your hands on these products that David is featuring. And this sweepstakes is open to U.S. residents, and it ends on 9/18. I almost said November. It is September 18th of this year, 2023. Winners will be chosen and contacted by the sponsors whose product it is that you will be receiving. All we will need from you will be your email. So you can check out how you can get into those sweepstakes by checking out in the description below the video. And of course, keep your questions coming, keep your comments coming. If there are any more general questions even that you have for David, if we have time at the end, we will always get to those as well. So without further ado, we're going to move away from Tamron. I believe the next thing we have coming up is from Fujifilm. So we've got Fujifilm X-T5 and F16 to 55 millimeter f2.8 RLMWR. And I'm going to let David take it away on this one.
Yeah, so you saw me holding my Sony camera. We're dealing with Fujifilm now. Really comparable in size when I held up my other camera versus this one. So very close in size when we're talking about the mirrorless systems that we're looking at. So Tamron, Sony and Fujifilm. But what I love about the X-T5 is it's actually lighter than the Sony. And you're saving a little bit of weight in your camera bag using this camera. Now, a lot of photographers, especially in the outdoor field, are switching over to Fujifilm because of the products that they're coming out with. So lighter weight, because this is a crop APS-C sensor, which a lot of people are like, hey, why would you go from full frame back to APS-C? The files that this camera makes are phenomenal, easily comparable to a full frame when you're talking about how good of a quality that they actually are when you're editing those on your computer. The colors that come out of this camera too, I hear a lot of people when they talk about cameras, talk about the color that they create. Every camera, it's kind of weird. Every camera makes a little bit different looking color that comes out of it. And I love the color that Fujifilm creates. Now, I've used the XT cameras when I go to shoot in the mountains for like a week. And they're honestly some of the most fun that I've had using these cameras. And there are a couple reasons why. The weatherproofing on these cameras is really, really good. I did risk going out in a pouring rainstorm with this just to see what would happen. I had no issues, but the weatherproofing on this is really good. And also on the lenses, their weatherproofing is really good. Now, they probably don't recommend you take it out into a rainstorm, but any kind of mist, haziness, sprinkles are totally fine with that. Really good in the heat, dust, and cold. So you're getting a lot of capability with this camera. I just put my cameras a little bit further beyond the extent that they should be taken out in. And that's a personal problem because I've had to buy other cameras too. That's a different story. Another thing I love about the Fujifilm cameras is they kind of had this like vintage feel on them with a lot of the dials on top. So it's a little overwhelming when you look at for the first time, but once you start using it, you start to see how much faster your flow is going to be when you are in the field taking photos, because you can easily set your ISO. You can set whether you want to use aperture priority, shutter priority. You can set your exposure compensation. They have a lot of custom buttons you can set on the back too. and a really big screen that you can see your photos on as you're taking them in the field. That's not something that's talked about very often, but I love how big the screen is on this camera because you can really zoom in and see a lot of the details that you're taking photos with and seeing if it's in that tack sharp focus, because there's nothing worse than going out, taking a photo, thinking you nailed it, coming back and it's out of focus. There's nothing you can do about it. Let's talk about this lens too. Fuji lenses have always been really, really good. Top-notch glass that they have, and it's because of the amount of glass and the quality of glass that they put throughout these lenses. This is a 16 to 55, so on a crop sensor APS-C camera, this is going to be comparable to like a 24 to 70, somewhere in that range. So you're getting a really classic wide angle look when we're talking about a zoom wide angle lens with this camera. So 16 to 55 here. Another thing that I love about Fuji lenses is that they allow you to set your aperture on the actual lens dial. So instead of going into your camera, going through your camera menu, looking at it on the back of the screen. I've had several cameras. This is probably why you shouldn't take them out in rainstorms. I've had so many cameras where the back screen actually died on me, and I had to set everything by looking in the little window that you look in, the viewfinder. But this easily allows you to set your aperture on the lens ring itself. I love that because it saves me tons of time, because instead of constantly going back to my camera looking on the screen, I can just say, hey, I want this at f4. Set it to f4. It's that fast. I want this at f16. Set it f16. It's that fast. If that changes your settings on here, you have the camera dial on top to go through and balance your exposure with the ISO on the top of the camera, or just twist your finger on the front to set a new shutter speed. So there's a lot of capability just right at the tips of your fingers when we're talking about the X-T5 and the Fuji lenses like the XF 16 to 55. This also has a max aperture of f2.8 like the Tamarons we talked about. So you can use this for any type of photography that you need. Travel, going out in a city, whether you're going there internationally, going on a short weekend vacation, you can use this for landscapes easily. This is a phenomenal lens. And a lot of people talk about the XT5 as like the top-notch APS-C camera before stepping into a full frame camera if you want to do that. I've actually seen a lot of photographers go back to APS-C because of the quality that this camera produces. So it's a really good one to use and very functional. You don't really have to learn. There's not that high learning curve when you get this camera. There's not that confusion when you open it up and look at the menu for the first time. Everything, like I said, is at your fingertips, and you can easily access everything right the first time that you go out and shoot. So really high quality camera that you can use.
All right, there we go. That sounds like a really great way to eliminate some barriers to entry, right? With some equipment like that. So that's nice. Ooh, and a question just came in from Bailey. Bailey wants to know if this would be good for Bailey's style of moody, foggy landscapes. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of times when you're dealing with fog, you get that moisture in the atmosphere that you don't want to get in your
Mhm.
camera, but the weatherproofing on this will definitely you'll have no issue with that. And creating like these moody, foggy, I take photos in the Smoky Mountains all the time, and I've taken cameras like this, the XT5, XT30 out with me, and it created beautiful images when I was out shooting in those conditions. And a lot of times those are moody when you're in the fog, you're dealing, even if you're making black and white photography, creating that moody kind of atmosphere. These are great lenses to use. And Fuji has tons of lenses that you can attach to this camera. The XF series lenses, they have so many that you can look through and get. The 16 to 55, or 16 to 55 is a great one to use though, if you're just getting into Fuji cameras.
All right, that's our question so far. Again, keep them coming. We can always go back to any of the products. If you feel like you missed one and want to go back to it, let us know. We have time to do that. But for now, I think we're going to be moving on to what happens when you want to get things out of your camera and out for display. So we're going to talk next about Bay Photo Fujiflex acrylic prints. David, what have you got for us for this one?
These are great. And it's fun to talk about gear, but at some point you're like, okay, when can I actually start to see some photos here? A lot of numbers get thrown around when we're talking about cameras and lenses, but then you get prints like the Fujiflex acrylics and you get shots like this. So let me back up for a second so you can see this whole thing. I did a lot of examples here when I contacted Bay Photo about what I wanted them to send as examples. And I have a wall. If I turn my camera around, I have a whole wall of these prints facing me on the other side. So I get these for my personal photography as well. Why I like these so much is because it's kind of like you take that image from your computer screen and just put it on a print. There's no questions. The color is perfect whenever you order these, and the dynamic range, like the contrast that these produce, is so good. You can see the highlights and the shadows in this photo specifically. That's why I chose it. And I'll bring up another one here so you can see other examples. I have one that's still in the wrapping, so I can show you how they're shipped as well. But they have a wide range of colors that you can use, and the light just pops off of these really well. If I can get it without the highlights of my light here. The light pops off of these so well. So this one I wanted to get because of the nice yellow tones and blue tones. So it shows you the contrast and temperature that you can get in your photos too. But these come in a wide range of sizes. They're getting bigger and bigger. I have an even bigger one that I want to show you in just a second. But these are great. I want to talk about the mounting. I'm probably the least handy person when it comes to home ownership, putting things on walls. I don't understand any of that, but these come with the packaging on the back. The mounting system that they have on the rear is perfect, and they all come with the hardware that's taped to the back. So you can easily just get all the right hardware. You have it right there in the packaging, and they have instructions that they send with to how to actually mount these and hang them on your wall. So there's no questions there. Really easy to just take out of the packaging and put up on your wall. I've used these with the hardware. I've also used the smaller ones with like command strips on my walls, and they hold just fine. They're a little bit heavy, but with something like an acrylic, that's to be expected. So how these are acrylic is basically they put your print on this sheet right here, and then they put a layer of thick acrylic glass over it, and it shows how much luster and just how much saturation that your photos have. And it's really high quality stuff. I want to show you the packaging in just a second. Let me just show you this massive one that I have here. So I'll talk a little bit louder since I'm away from my screen now. But they have small sizes all the way up to these huge sizes. So I shot this as a panorama in Zion National Park with a snowstorm coming through. And you can see my arm's getting tired because this is so big. But you can see like how much detail that these can produce. You can see how much contrast, color, and clarity that's provided in these as well. And they just look really clean when they're on your wall. Let me get this smallest one now that I've had my workout for the day, holding up that huge print. I wanted to show you this one because of the packaging that comes with it. So when they come, my wife was like, what on earth did you order? Because the box was massive, because they protect them really well when they send them to you. So when this comes in the box, it has a full sheet of cardboard that's on the outside, and it has this protective wrapping that's sealing the acrylic on the inside. So you have cardboard protecting it all around from every side and from the front especially. So you have two forms of protection that coming in on the front. And like I said, they have the mounting instructions and the hardware that comes with it. And then when you're ready to put it on your wall, they just have a pullback tab. And it's a sheet of plastic that's over the acrylic that's really sticky to the actual print. And when you pull that off, you can see how much detail is actually included in the print. So it's really secure when you do that. And then you pull it off and you can see how much detail and color is provided in these as well. So this is the smallest one that I ordered, but like you saw, they come all the way from a small, this would probably be 16 by 20, something like that, or 11 by 14, 11 by 16, somewhere in there. And then that massive one, I mean, it's going to take up a huge spot on the wall in my office once I actually get it put up. But these are phenomenal. I highly recommend Bay Photo. I know a lot of pros use Bay Photo for art shows. A lot of pros use them for just displaying them in their own home. I have a full wall, like I said, in my office over on the other side of other photos that I've taken all over the country. So they are a phenomenal company to use. And I've used them myself for all of my prints, and I've never had an issue with color, shipping, damaged prints, anything like that. And the Fuji Flex acrylic is just top notch. Like if you're doing an art show or you just want to have a really good print in your home, use that because it will not disappoint you.
All right. I'm going to wait. I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me, David?
Yeah, we can hear
All
you.
right. Awesome. All right. We have one more item that we're going to feature here. So you said we were doing a lot of numbers earlier. We're going to get back into some numbers here and some gear on this last item. This is the OM System OM5 and 12 to 45 millimeter Pro Lens Kit. So what do you have to say about this final item here?
This is like the best camera options in a small little package. This rivals a lot of the bigger cameras that you have, but everything is so small. So this is the OM System OM5. I've used the OM1 as well, and the OM5 is a really great camera too. Now, I would think, when we talked about our other cameras, you saw the size of them. This is for a target market that is really looking for a lot of smaller gear, lighter weight, that they don't have to change a lot of lenses on, that they can just have in their bag and go on adventures. This is for people who like to hike. This is for people who like to backpack. This is for people who like to kind of run and gun and go and capture the moment while it's happening with no questions asked, not having to fool around with changing tons of lenses or fooling around with different settings or things like that. This is a great camera to use if that is you. I use this whenever I go out and adventure just on local trails and go out in the field as well. So it's great. Like I said, I've used the OM1 before too, and I have that on my shelf back here if I can grab it just for size comparison. So here's the OM1 compared with the OM5. So a little bit smaller of a package. And I think that's great because the OM1 is kind of like the beast camera from OM System. But when we're talking about the OM5, again, smaller, lighter weight, but you're not really sacrificing on quality and you're capturing a lot of those moments very quickly. What jumped out to me about this camera and lens is the weight of it, because it is a smaller camera, but the weight in it is so light. Like this is maybe 1 pound. It's tiny and it's super lightweight, very compact. Like you can see, it just fits right in my hand. And then the lens too. This is the entire lens that you're getting with a 12 to 45 range. That's a massive range from ultra wide angle all the way to a mid-range look. Now, this camera has phenomenal weatherproofing. They say on their website that it can last up to -10 Celsius. So you're getting into extreme cold temperatures. It says, they blast it with all different sides of water jets on their website. So you can see that it's really good weatherproofing. I'm going to test that out next time that I go shoot. I'm actually going to test that out next time we have a downpour storm. I'm going to take it out with me. But the weatherproofing on it is great, dust proof. This is like wherever you want to take it in the world. this camera will do the job. So it's a micro four thirds camera, which makes it super lightweight because the sensor is much smaller than like a full frame, but you're not sacrificing quality on this sensor either because of the technology that they've included in this. So when you get a image off of your camera and onto your computer, you have all the detail there, tons of contrast, tons of dynamic range from shadows and highlights as well. What I like about this too is the actual screen. A lot of cameras have just a screen that kind of flips out a little bit, but this one rotates all the way around. And I love this because I'm always in like these weird situations where I'm trying to get different angles, shoot under logs or over leaves. And if I shoot up high, I can just tilt this down so I can look up from the bottom and see. Or if I shoot down low, I can tilt it up so I can see everything that I'm photographing too. So any perspective that you want to photograph with, this camera can easily let you see what you're doing, change your settings without having to fool around with the screen that's on the camera or anything like that. Some of the things that come on this camera that I really find useful, not only the small and lightweight package, but you're getting things like built-in, very accurate 5-axis image stabilization, which all that means is it's a very fancy word for there's there are things inside of this sensor that if you shake the camera, it keeps the sensor as still as possible inside. So you're not dealing with a ton of issues like if you're hand holding a shot with this camera and you're trying to get it just right and you are worried about, maybe a lower shutter speed, something like 1/40th of a second. If you have the 5-axis image stabilization on, it's going to keep that sensor still while your hands are shaking a little bit while you're getting this just right. And what I love about this is not only the axis stabilization, but the continuous autofocus and autofocus tracking on this camera is really, really good too. So if you're taking this out and maybe you're photographing your family on a big adventure camping trip or backpacking trip, you can easily track the focus that's going on within the frame and have that to be tack sharp with their really fast autofocus. So with the tracking, all you have to do is just hold down this button halfway, the shutter button, and that will track your subject across the camera. And then when you're ready, you just push it all the way down and you're good to go. So that's really cool. Another thing I loved about this is their live ND or neutral density on this camera. So you can go out and see what it would actually look like if you were using a neutral density filter on this camera, which means you could extend your shutter speed to something like 30 seconds and still see what it's actually going to look like in real time when you're using this. So it's kind of like a built-in ND filter that you can use and not have to fool around with a filter system on the end of your camera because those can, distract you from the moment. So this camera is really built for people who want to be in the moment, don't want to fool around with a bunch of the extra stuff that you put on because a lot of that is built into this camera and you can take it anywhere. You can capture the adventure, capture the moment. That is why I love the OM5 from OM System. If I'm going on like a family camping trip, I'm taking this camera with me because it does allow me to capture all those moments, all the fun, and it's really, really rugged, has good battery life. Weatherproofing is phenomenal. So that is a great camera for anybody who is the adventurous type, wants to get out a little bit beyond the norm, and pack a small pack in their camera bag. I've taken this out in a fanny pack before, and that's all I took with me. So it was great.
Ooh, there we go. All right, Carol's got a question here.
Mhm.
This is a new brand to Carol, not familiar with
Mhm.
OM. Carol wants to know what OM stands for.
So this is actually the company Olympus. They've actually rebranded into OM System, which I think is kind of cool because they're branching out kind of on their own thing and making a lot of new cameras that are for those rugged people who want to go on adventures. So it is kind of a new name, but you're not. It's one of those things like when people come up to you and they're like, "What do you take photos with?" or what kind of camera do you have? They always expect you to say Canon or Nikon, right? So when you throw out names like OM System, they're like, What's that? I don't know what that is." And you can easily just tell it, like, show them this camera. It's smaller, more compact, lighter weight, but does the same job that one of those other brands would do. So OM System, while it's a newer name, kind of on people's radar, it's not one to be ignored because you're not sacrificing any quality and you're getting out to realms that are beyond what a lot of normal cameras can actually do. And that's what I think is cool about OM System. They're thinking outside the box when it comes to camera because so many companies are like, hey, let's make a camera that's 100 megapixels. Let's build the sensor out, make it bigger, bigger, bigger. What they've done here is they've packed a lot of that external gear that you might take with you and put it into the camera already so you don't have to fool with that, and made a smaller and lighter weight camera for the adventure.
Okay. All right. I am going to give our viewers just a minute here. If you have any questions left for David, we are reaching the end of our time with him today. So I'm going to let him tell us a little bit about what kind of photography plans do you have coming up with the change of the seasons or in the upcoming year that you feel free to share with us, David. And I will keep an eye out for any last minute questions as you do that.
Sure, of course. I think with the end of the year coming up, it's always exciting, right? Because it's so hot during the summer. You spend a lot of time inside, you're ready to go out and take photos. And with fall coming up, one thing I have coming up next month actually is a trip down to the Gulf of Mexico to do some beach photography and do a lot of sunrise photography, wild birds down there. And I'm really excited about that because that's kind of out of my wheelhouse when we talk about photography. I'm used to the mountains, waterfalls, things like that. I'm really excited to get down there and try to make it a yearly trip for me in late September. And then in late October, that last week of October in East Tennessee, it's really beautiful down here. So I'm heading east for that trip last week of October, getting out to the mountains and my waterfalls that I love to go to. And I'm going to photograph those for the fall. And then it'll be interesting because we've had a lot of interesting weather this summer. Hurricane Hillary just came through the West Coast. That was really bizarre. And a lot of my trips that I had planned or that I was looking at for January to things like Joshua Tree and also Death Valley, those are kind of in limbo right now because of the road situation going on in some of those national parks with the flooding. So it's kind of in limbo, but I do like to head out west for those months into the deserts, Mojave Desert, Death Valley. Those places are beautiful in January, even up into Central California, out into the desert lands that just back up to the Sierra Mountains. So I'm planning, hopefully, fingers crossed, for something like that to happen in January. And then from then on, it's kind of full go, going out to East Tennessee, even down to a little spot in Louisiana and Florida that I like to go to for some swamp photography. So a lot of fun stuff on the radar for me. And I know a lot of other people are excited for fall too. And those are popular spots. And if you ever are out there, you happen to see me, please say hi. I love talking photography with other people, especially when I'm on a camping trip by myself for a week. It gets a little bit lonely when you're out there and you have no one to talk to. So, yeah. Any other questions that came in? I'd love to talk about those.
I am not seeing any other questions. There were a couple of our viewers that were shouting out their own things that they use. So we have William that says, William shoots Sony, and then in parentheses says, sorry, LOL. And William's recent Tamron lens purchases are approaching Sigma Art Series quality. And William is in Vancouver, Canada. I think someone else was in here that shoots with a Tamron. lens. Yes, Carol is very happy with Tamron lenses. Carol shoots with a Canon. So viewers that were with the ones you featured, very specific to the Sony mirrorless. But yes, Tamron has lenses that are available for a bunch of different brands. I think that's it in the chat box. So I do have a couple reminders for people, but first, David, is there anything else that you wanted to mention about any of those 5 products that you listed through for us?
I would say any of these, if you were thinking about anything from, cameras to lenses, all the way to buying or selling your used equipment from MPB, Tamron, Fujifilm, OM System, if you want to buy your own prints and put them up on your wall from Bay Photo, that is one of the most fun things you can do as a photographer, to actually hold a print. Nowadays, we always look at them on our phones or on our screens, but if you could hold a print, there's nothing better than that. So I would say if you're thinking about branching out into any of those categories, if you're interested in any of those brands, don't hesitate, because everything that we've talked about today is of great quality. These companies are great to work with. I've been working with them for a while now, and it's just really fun to interact with them, talk with them, hear about their new products, and we wouldn't have them on here if they weren't great.
That is a ringing endorsement. It is always great to hear you talk about how you use these products. You make them all seem so useful, and even for people that are new-ish to photography in general, you give great entry points to all of these. So thank you so much for your expertise, David. And thank you to all of our viewers for watching with us. Again, you have until September 18th, 2023 to get your name into this sweepstakes if you are in the United States, but you do not have to wait until then. You could do it right now, and I think you should. The link for your chance to enter is below in the video description, or you can find that in the chat box. It is your email address. And if you are one of the 5 winners that are chosen, you will be hearing from the sponsor whose product it is that you will be receiving. So if you enter your email, keep a lookout for those things. Maybe check your junk inbox folder a few times just to make sure you don't miss your chance to win one of these incredible prizes. So thank you again to David for taking us through all of these wonderful products and explaining their features for us. Thank you to all of the sponsors today for providing those products. And thank you to everybody out there for watching. Join the sweepstakes, enter, see if you get a chance to win these, and go out and take some fantastic photos. On behalf of our entire team, thank you so much for watching today, and we will see you next time.